the opportunity to start on the front row. The fastest qualifier tonight was car number 8, Chuck Winders, and he must have drawn a 6 on the pill here tonight, so the field was inverted. The top 6 were inverted, and so Scott Walters, by virtue of having the 6th fastest qualifying time, will start inside row number 1, but the guy's really been burning up the tracks around Kentucky and in the past couple of weeks is Joe Williamson Jr. He'll start outside that front row, but he lets out the gas just a little bit. The field will come to Mike Harwood, and whoa, they'll go another lap before they take the green flag. Mike Harwood, our starter, did not like the way that they were positioning themselves up in the 3rd and 4th turn, and they really need to have an even start there. It looked like Joe Williamson Jr. lagged up just a tad there, and the Roadrunner nearly put himself a pass forward. They're down in turns 3 and 4, set for a start again. Harwood likes them, and he gives them the green flag. They're off into turns 1 and 2, and it's Scott Walters with the early lead. At second now, Joe Williamson Jr. looking for some racing room to the outside. And here comes car number 98, Keith Gardner, up along the inside of Joe Williamson Jr., who cocks it a little sideways there in the 4-turn area of the racetrack. They'll come back across the stripe, and Joe Williamson Jr. makes a little contact with Chuck Winders. He'll go skittering across the infield and goes back to almost last place on the field. Your leader is Scott Walters in car number 5, the Roadrunner Video Club's Conover's Body Shop Racing Camaro. At second, it's the Ford Thunderbird Super Coupe, car number 98 of Keith Gardner, and then car number 53, Joe Williamson Jr., followed by car number 28, Frank Kimmel, the 28 there running at 4th, going 5th, Joe Williamson Sr., and then it's car number 20, Preston Ford, as they get double stacked in turn number 4. They're down the front straightaway and into turns 1 and 2. There you see some great racing going into turns 1 and 2 with Jack Cornett of Somerset, Kentucky, along the outside of Clarksville, Indiana's Bill Kimmel Jr. as Chuck Winders goes down to the infield once again, the point leader in this division, having a terrible feature event, and he takes the safety net down. He'll call it quits tonight. 4 laps in the books now. Scott Walters, a young driver out of Iroquois Park, Kentucky, in car number 5, continuing the lead. And Keith Gardner in car number 98 is right there at second. Going third, Joe Williamson Jr. And then Clarksville, Indiana's Frank Kimmel. And the front 4 cars have pulled themselves away from the rest of the field. A lot of daylight between 4th and 5th place. There you'll find Joe Williamson Sr. in the Kroger's Automotive Bachman Chevrolet IROC Camaro. They're into turns 1 and 2 and busting down the back straightaway. It's a 4-car draft into turns 3 and 4. Scott Walters led pretty much of the Mid-Atlantic NASCAR Winston Racing Series points in 1988. He's leading tonight's feature event. Actually picked up 2 feature wins in the 1988 racing season here at Louisville Motor Speedway. Into turns 3 and 4 now. And it's Keith Gardner, who has already collected 1 feature in 1989. He's currently up around 2nd or 3rd in the points here at Louisville Motor Speedway. And right now, trailing Scott Walters down the back straightaway. Only 8 laps into this contest, so they've got a long way to go. Joe Williamson Jr. here running at 3rd place on the field. Frank Kimmel runs right alongside of him. 9 laps into the book, Scott Walters. What has the race shown us so far as Brian Baum is slowing here on the front straightaway, and Fred Williams barely almost knocked him off.
Indeed, boy, wild action all over. This is an incredibly competitive late models class for 1989. In trouble up in that turn, the number 3 turn. They're going every which way. I didn't see. It looked like Cornett got sideways to start it and kind of triggered it off as the leaders now just go through that way. Brian Baum is stopped up on the number 2 turn at the start-finish line. We're getting a yellow because it is a zoo out there right now, Frank.
Looks like a parking lot out there in turn number 2 as Brian Baum suddenly lost power on the front straightaway. And then about 1 lap later, Jack Cornett was touched over in the 3rd turn. And I tell you, Scott, there's just so many cars just about set to go back. Green flag racing here after 11 laps of competition. A yellow flag came out for Brian Baum, whose car stalled over in turn number 2. Our leader so far has been car number 5, Scott Walters, and car number 98, Keith Gardner at 2nd place, Joe Williamson Jr. at 3rd, and then Frank Kimmel running at 4th. Scott Douglas, you made the comment that 98 might have the advantage on the start.
Well, Keith Gardner, I thought, looked very, very quick at the start of the race. But it's one of those situations where Scotty Walters really was going to keep him behind him. Now with the option of starting beside him, as long as that outer groove isn't too much slower, Keith might be able to get the momentum and put that nose in front. Gardner's been very strong, and so is Walters, so we're looking at 2 of the best. Gardner the edge on experience, but then again, Walters really the edge on experience at this track. So it should be an interesting restart, but Keith had a lot of momentum, looked very quick before the caution came out, and if he can get a good restart here, he might be able to wrest the lead away from Walters. We'll see.
You know, when you look at the point standings, Scott Walters, he has to win. I mean, that's all there is to it. He wants to win. And Gardner has already won one feature in this season, so you know Scotty wants it worse. Another thing, too, is Frank Kimmel. He's way overdue. It looked like he had him in the bag the Twin 50s, or excuse me, Twin 30s night, Winston Twin 30s night, had the engine let go, so he's way overdue for a win. Those two are three top guys here, and Joe Williamson Jr., for that matter, has never won a feature here. So the green flag's back out for racing again, and everybody wants to win this thing. 98 Gardner to the outside of Scott Walters off turn number 2 and down the back straightaway. Gardner has a lot of momentum going in turns 3 and 4. Actually has an advantage out of 4 and will be scored as the leader on lap 11 into turns 1 and 2. And just as Scott Douglas has predicted, Gardner uses the outside of the racetrack, which is the favorite place to go here at Louisville Motor Speedway.
Now, Keith just had the momentum, and he's had the strong race car. There was no doubt about it. Scotty Walters has been very tough, but he couldn't hold him off. Scotty's in a strong second. Joe Williamson Jr. has got the fight of his life going on for third right now with Frank Kimmel. Joe Jr. has been very consistent this year. He's been finishing in the top 5 everywhere. He's a couple of wins at other tracks, and here tonight he's running strong again.
Joe Williamson Jr. will have the fight of his life when he laps the number 8 of Chuck Winders, I believe, because Winders is back out onto the racetrack. It's Gardner out front. Byerly Ford by far the best. Pike Racing chassis. Ford Thunderbird Super Coupe puts lap number 15 in the books. Halfway home here tonight. It's Scott Walters in the Roadrunner Video Club. Conover's Body Shop Racing IROC Camaro prepared by Billy Harris at second. The Battles at third. Joe Williamson Jr. at car number 53. The Kroger's Automotive Able Auto Parts Racing IROC. Racing right there with his father in number 11, who's right there on his rear tailpipes, as well as car number 28, Frank Kimmel. And Kimmel's older brother, Bill, has pulled down to the infield. We have a tire off an automobile over in turn 2. It's Cincinnati, Ohio's Fred Hall. Losing the, looks like the wheel or something broke on the left rear side. Anyway, Fred Hall needs a new tennis shoe. We're under caution at lap 17. We'll take this break in the action. 16 laps complete, just over the halfway point. Keith Gardner in the Byerly Ford Thunderbird Super Coupe continues to lead. Scott Walters, 21 years of age, looking for his first feature win of 1989 for Roadrunner Video Clubs. And the green flag doesn't come out. They'll go at least one more lap here before they take the green flag. Joe Williamson Jr. in car number 53, the Kroger's Automotive Able Auto Parts and Jim Williamson Service Center IROC Camaro there on the inside of Frank Kimmel out of Clarksville, Indiana, in his Tomcat Motorsports, the College Shop IROC Camaro.
Watch us start, see if Joe Jr. tries to really hug in there with Gardner and force Walters out. Maybe Joe's going to try and get second away from him. Although we still didn't get a start.
Okay, evidently Mike Harwood didn't like the way they looked out of turn 4. It's all important that they do get an even start as they move down the back straightaway, and it's actually up to Scott Walters to keep the pace with Keith Gardner. So let's see, if they don't get one this time, it could be a warning. What do you think? Out of turn number 4, and the green flag is out. There's just no way you're going to stay with Gardner on the front straightaway, baby. He's hooked up. Going into turns 1 and 2. Car number 5, Scott Walters there, drops into second. Joe Williamson Jr. cannot take advantage of that outside spot. Scotty quickly gets down low, but he's leaving an opening there for Joe Williamson Jr. I tell you, when he comes off the turns there, into turns 1 and 2, and Joe Williamson Jr. just can't get down there. Frank Kimmel's right there in 4th place. We're hugging the outside there of 53, Joe Williamson Jr. And then Senior is right behind them, followed by Preston Ford, defending late model champion Bill Webb, and then Steve Webb, followed by Tony the Tiger Johnson, as everybody goes to the low side of Larry Clyer. Whoa, and that slows down Tony the Tiger Johnson's momentum a little bit. And 35, Junior Blankenship picks up the spot over Tony Johnson on the front straightaway. And into turns 1 and 2. Single file formation for about the first 10 or 12 spots, Scott Douglas.
You know, Scott Walters, I wanted to give a call to him right now. He had like 13 seconds last year in NASCAR competition, and if he can hold this spot, he'll get it again tonight. But he made a great move to save second. Joe Jr. was going to go for it, and Scotty just really was able to get enough momentum and come on down and get that spot back. He fought it off well and did a great job. And now Frank Kimmel continues to try and test Joe Jr. in a good battle for third. But Scott Walters had the shot and held on to second, and now he's going to try and do it for 9 more laps. Unless there's something wrong with Gardner, I don't think they're going to get him. Keith looks so strong in that Byerly Ford Thunderbird.
Car number 98, Ford Thunderbird Super Coupe, sponsored by Barley Ford. By far the best, and right now he does look by far the best. Pike Racing chassis, interesting situation underneath that car. A Pike chassis is running first and third. That's what Joe Williamson Jr. has, a Pike Racing chassis built in Shively, Kentucky. How about that? Okay, and a Harris Racing chassis from Fairdale, Kentucky. Those running in second place, and he's got the Roadrunner Video Club's sponsored automobile in Fast Forward there, and he's running at second place. There is Frank Kimmel, a car number 28, running at fourth. He has a C-Line Engineering Tomcat Racing chassis, and then I believe it's a Howell chassis underneath Joe Williamson Sr.'s automobile, followed by a Lensing left-hander out of Illinois. That's what Preston Ford has for a chassis, and then another C-Line Engineering chassis of Bill Webb. Great battle there, by the way. Preston Ford and Bill Webb as they run side by side into turns 3 and 4.
That's the battle for sixth, and of course Bill Webb started well back in this field, so obviously although he didn't qualify well, the Webb Motorsports gang has done some great work on that car. He's worked his way up through the field, and now Bill Webb going to be knocking on the door for a top 5 finish.
He's got 4 laps to do it. Webb's getting a little bit loose there, but he's still side by side with Preston Ford. Down the front straightaway and into turns 1 and 2. Just ahead of him, we've got a great battle amongst 3 cars. Joe Williamson Jr., Joe Sr., and right in between them there is Frank Kimmel. Out of turn number 4, 28 laps complete, 2 to go, and down into turns 1 and 2, and down the back straightaway. Keith Gardner in car number 98 moves in on car number 8, Chuck Winders, and Tony the Tiger Johnson pulls out of the event. The white flag's out, less than 1 to go. Gardner's down into turns 1 and 2. It's an Auburndale Auto Parts and Machine racing engine underneath the hood of the first 2 automobiles. Scott Walters also running the Auburndale horsepower. Out of turn number 4, give feature event number 2 for 1989 to Keith Gardner in the Barley Ford, by far the best racing Thunderbird Super Coupe. Across the line at second, it was car number 5, Scott Walters in the Roadrunner Video Club's Conover's Body Shop Racing IROC Camaro. And then finishing up at third, Joe Williamson Jr. in car number 53, the Kroger's Automotive Able Auto Parts Racing Camaro. There's your winner, though, car number 98, Keith Gardner of Iroquois Park, Kentucky, in the Ford Thunderbird Super Coupe, rolling into victory lane for the second time in feature event competition in 1989 here at Louisville Motor Speedway.